On the Honourable Member for Douglas North, Mr Ashford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'd like to start by thanking all those constituents that have either been in touch with me, stopped me in passing or engaged with me when it's come up in general conversation about the motion before us today. As you would expect, views have been split between those who believe this is the worst administration ever and that I should fully and wholeheartedly support the motion today, to those that are deeply concerned about the motion and believe it would be crazy for me to support it. There has, however, been a clear majority from those I've spoken to, which I will come on to shortly. I would also like to thank the Honourable Member for Albury, Castertown and Maloo for bringing the motion today. Now, I know there are some that don't think this motion should even have been on the order paper, but to be clear, I'm not one of those. I believe that members have the given right to bring any motion they choose, as long as it complies with the standing orders of this House, of course. Although I will be seeking further clarification from the mover about why this particular wording has been chosen for us here today. In a strange way, I actually see this motion as helpful, Mr Speaker, and let me explain why. The most damaging thing in politics is eternal speculation. Speculation around will they, won't they, who supports who or what, what's their real views. For the last year, since it was mooted that a confidence motion may come forward, there's been constant speculation. A bit like a pantomime. There's a confidence motion coming. Oh no, there's not. Oh yes, there is. One thing speculation does in politics is breed instability. So today I see this motion as helpful as it puts an end to that speculation once and for all. Today, members of this House will be clearly asked to vote and express their views openly and have them recorded on the public record for posterity. Which brings me to a bit of a point I was a bit confused about if I heard the Honourable Member's opening words. There was reference to secret vote, Mr Speaker. None of our proceedings in this House, certainly in the time I've been here, have been secret. All our votes are open and recorded. Even if a division is not called, you can infer from that members have supported something. So there is no secret votes. It seems to have taken hold in some quarters outside of this Honourable Chamber. Turning to the motion itself, like the Honourable Member for Oncombe, Mr Callister, I would also like to know a bit more from the mover in his summing up around why the motion is one directly in the Chief Minister, which is effectively a non-statutory and non-binding motion, rather than the statutory motion set out in law in the Council of Ministers Act 1990, which is very clear in Section 2, subsection 3b, what the wording of the motion should be if the Chief Minister is to vacate office. That is, this House has no confidence in the Council of Ministers. So why the more personal motion? The Honourable Mover says in his opening remarks it's because he believes some ministers are doing a good job. But to me, Mr Speaker, that's not a coherent argument. It plays to the myth, which we will come on to shortly, that whoever is Chief Minister is directing everything and running everything. The legislation is not just worded like that by accident. Council of Ministers is a collective. They, by majority vote, decide the direction of government, not at the dictatorial whim of a Chief Minister. In fact, if this motion passes today, I would suspect that most of the existing ministers would be off and say to those supporting this motion, congratulations, over to you, show us how it's done. Before I go any further, I should state I won't be actually supporting the motion today. I thank again all those constituents who got in touch with me about this and do appreciate and respect the views of those who believe it's time for a change, although actually they were in the minority of those I've spoken to. The majority believed either it was too late in the day, or as one put it very succinctly to me, we would be absolutely balmy to change now and what would actually be achieved. For me, Mr Speaker, I think that's the point. If this motion did pass today, what would actually change? If the Chief Minister decided to go, what would replace what's in place now? Firstly, who would take over? Now, I know the Honourable Member for Douglas Central, Mr Thomas, has very selfishly and gallantly volunteered to saddle up his white horse and ride to our rescue as our knight in shining armour. But I'm still a bit vague on what will actually change as a result. What policies will be different? Also, is it just Mr Thomas? Or is anyone else interested? Let's have a show of hands, Mr Speaker. Any takers? No? Didn't think so. Now, some people would say, well, whatever comes next can't be any worse. Well, trust me, Mr. Speaker, things could be a lot worse, and it really could be a case of be careful what you wish for. The grass always looks greener on the other side until you get there and find it's actually painted on. Listening to some, Mr. Speaker, you would think if this motion passes, we'd all be suddenly skipping through green fields with blue skies and rainbows ahead of us on our way to utopia. But the challenges will still be the same. The money, budgets and funding challenges will still be the same. The only thing that will really have changed is the faces around the Council of Ministers table. If this motion passes, good luck to them. They may find out it's not as easy as they think. And once appointed, it's the ministers of those departments that are in control. The Chief Minister has no powers to direct those departments or those ministers, as anyone would know if they read the Right Review. Only Council of Ministers can direct another minister. The Chief Minister has the power to hire and fire ministers, and to be honest, that's about it. When it comes to Council of Ministers, the Chief Minister is just one of 9. They chair the meeting, but they have one vote the same as any other minister, and can be outvoted with collective responsibility then applying to the Chief Minister just as much as any other minister. So if 5 ministers decide they don't agree with the Chief Minister of the day, they can consistently outvote them at Council of Ministers. The Chief Minister's only real power would be to replace them, and if you keep doing that, you eventually run out of people. That's why the motion before us today, if people are unhappy with the direction of travel, should be the statutory one, as decisions are a collective. Over the years, people have said to me, Department of Health and Social Care, oh, that's the poison chalice of government. Or Department of Infrastructure, that's the poison chalice. Mr. Speaker, I've come to the conclusion the real poison chalice is being Chief Minister. You don't have a department as such. You have no personal directional power over ministers unless a majority of the ministers agree. You're front and centre in the public mind of everything that goes wrong, and you can be outvoted at Council of Ministers by your other ministers. If this motion passes, I wish Mr. Thomas and anyone else who may come forward well, as personally I think you'd have to be mad to want the job. So say this motion does pass, Mr. Speaker, and the Chief Minister stands down. What then? Then, Mr. Speaker, far from providing certainty, it will, in my view, provide nothing but chaos and instability at a time when people out there want us to get on with the job they elected us to do, which is govern the country and resolve the issues that are impacting their lives. It's easy sometimes to get immersed in the political bubble of this honourable place, Mr. Speaker. There are real people out there with real lives looking to us to resolve the issues that matter to them, looking to us to provide leadership and work to provide solutions. And what's our answer? Turf out the current administration. Throw all the cards up in the air on the off chance they land in a way that's a bit better than what we have now. If this motion passes, it will lead to, and this is being optimistic for me, a month of stagnation while a new Chief Minister is elected. Assuming one is elected in that time, even if there's only one candidate, they still need to get 13 votes in this Honourable House. You will remember well the 2006 Chief Minister election, Mr. Speaker, which resulted in stalemate, and the person who was then sat in your chair happened to be drafted in as the sort of compromise candidate with a period of uncertainty in between. Then new ministers have to be appointed. A new direction of government decided. We'd be lucky if anything is in place and up and running effectively for the new year. There's no time to make any fundamental changes to the budget that will then by then be finalised, ready to come before this Honourable Court in February. So realistically, the earliest any new administration would be able to change course properly in the fiscal sense would be at the start of 2026. And then their time's up. To be frank, Mr. Speaker, the whole idea behind this motion that we can seamlessly change the face at the top and all will be well with the world is a fairy tale and absolute lunacy in my view. I said it was time for some home truths, Mr. Speaker, and one of those is a thing that has constantly been fed back to me by people outside this Honourable House over recent times. The people who we are supposed to be here to represent. And it's they are sick and tired of seeing us fight amongst ourselves. As a couple put it to me the other day, they are sick of what they perceive as personal attacks or he said, she said responses. Or as another constituent put it, They are sick of what they see as us all fighting like cats in a sack, and we need to get on with the job we were put here to do. And that means not just holding government to account from the sidelines, but actively getting involved and leading government, not just throwing stones at one another. That's just some of the perceptions that I've had out there beyond the four walls of this chamber that have been shared with me. There's been some much more brutal ones with a lot more interesting language that I will spare the chamber of today. In fact, I wasn't sure if some of it was even English, to be honest. I had to look some of it up. But when sounding me out on how I would vote on this motion last week, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Mover urged me to heavily consider this motion and stated that anyone voting for more of the same will be seen as part of the problem. So that got me thinking, Mr. Speaker, what is the actual problem we face? Firstly, a budget deficit. We spend more than we raise, no matter how much we play around with the figures to make it look like the revenue account balances. An NI fund that needs reform, a housing shortage and accessibility problem, a health service that in many areas isn't delivering what our constituents expect, pressure on our education system and police force. But the big overriding problem, Mr. Speaker, is we are operating a low-tax jurisdiction but expect high-quality public services. The two aren't compatible. The Treasury Minister wants a national conversation around the future of the NI fund, but we need a more fundamental conversation around the whole public sector, how it is funded, what is affordable, and what is deliverable as a result. As I said in Tynwald earlier this month, let's start having those honest conversations with the public. But the point here today is, are those problems the fault of this administration? The fault of this Chief Minister? No. They are problems not even of the previous administration's making, but problems built up and ignored by administrations over the last 20 years. Now, by no means do I support everything this administration has done or is planning to do. Anyone who follows my comments both in this chamber, another place and outside of Tynwald will know that. In fact, if a change of course isn't taken in some areas, particularly in relation to fiscal discipline, then in February I'll be doing something I thought I would never do and be voting against the entire budget. But as much as there are quite a few points I disagree with this administration on, and policy approaches I may not agree on, I will at least give credit where credit is due in that this administration has recognised the problems and acknowledged them. May not have always tackled them head on, but that's still more than many other administrations have done over the last 20 years. So I would say, rather than seeing individuals as part of the problem and playing personality politics, we should all be making sure that each of us is individually and collectively working together to be part of the solution. Resist the route of personality politics and get on with resolving the issues that matter to the people out there. The simple fact is, Mr. Speaker, passing this motion today will not resolve any issues. Anyone who says or thinks that it will, as I say, in my view, is deluded. It will not make more housing available or affordable. It will not fix the budgetary deficits. It will not fix the quandary between low-tax jurisdiction and demand for high-quality public service. All it will do is provoke political inertia at a time when we all should be leading from the front, and all the drama that follows this motion may prove entertaining for any political nerds and commentators out there, but for most of the general public, it will provide nothing but frustration and exasperation. Make no mistake, I have no doubt any new administration will have a honeymoon of a few months. But then I can tell you right now, Mr. Speaker, the usual cry will go up that this is the worst administration until the next one. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, if this motion passes today, I say to anyone who voted for it, good luck explaining to the public why you supported potentially weeks, if not months, of political inertia. Also, good luck in their new roles in the new administration, as I doubt many of the existing ministers will volunteer to stick around. I hope for all our sakes that they prosper. But personally, I think if we as a collective support this today, then we've finally lost our collective minds.
Hear, hear.